Spelunky 2 is a game where you die. A lot. But apart from that, Spelunky 2 is a roguelike cave exploration game where your objective is to collect as much money as possible and get to the end, and possibly commit a few felonies in the way. Spelunky 1, or rather the second Spelunky, because this was actually the first one, so the one I'm gonna review is actually Spelunky 3. Anyway, Spelunky HD, this one, was critically acclaimed, and was a really important step in the popularization of roguelikes, and more importantly, difficulty being a more common thing in modern games. I always saw Spelunky HD as just a game that exists, but upon learning about the fact that there was gonna be a sequel, I for some reason was pretty hyped, and I actually beat the first one before buying Spelunky 2. I have also recently 100%ed Spelunky 2, which means I can now review it for all that it is. And man, do I have some stuff to say about it that's totally not related to murder. So let's start this already. I think I should begin with the most basic thing. How fun is the game? My answer? Very. Running through the different levels, making tough decisions, and of course, committing multiple accounts of murder. These things and more are what make the core of the gameplay. It was like this in the first one, and it's not very different here. Though Spelunky 2 has a lot more in the way of making the gameplay itself fun. The first thing I want to talk about is the introduction to sub-areas. These are small little caves in the foreground of some levels which might contain some random goodies, passages to other places, or special shops. Look at this little dude trying to sell his rocks. I also like how they turned some minor secret levels from the original into simple sub-areas this time around. It makes everything feel more compact, I guess. Another thing I loved about the levels is just the sheer amount of these nice little side quests or side stories, like giving turkeys to Mr. Turkey Guy over here, saving Von Horsing, or getting inside this secret place which I totally did not murder anybody for. And it's not like these are just simple linear quests. Sure, you can do them the right way, but you can also do them the batshit insane way, like just going into the Palace of Pleasure uninvited and committing mass genocide, killing the turkey guy to get his key rather than actually helping him, or bombing your way into Vlad's castle rather than using the drill. The point is, the difficulties you come across in this game are not one-dimensional. You can look at a problem from dozens of different angles, you just gotta do a little bit of experimentation, and that is one of the things that defines Spelunky for me. And of course, the amount of extra content added is just amazing. Holy shit, there's so much stuff to do apart from just following the linear path to the end. And that is what I would say really differs this game from its predecessor. Sure, in Spelunky HD there were a few little secrets to discover, but not even a fraction of what there is this time around. Not to mention how non-linear the gameplay feels. With every run, I give myself small little side objectives, like seeing something to put it in my journal, getting to a special sub-area I haven't gone to yet, etc. This game, in a way, feels a lot more like The Binding of Isaac, because, you know, in that game you have to get like the little marks with the characters. I don't know if that analogy made sense. Anyway, I just love this type of gameplay. The level design. I absolutely adore the level design in this game. As you already know, Spelunky is a roguelike, meaning that the levels are always randomly generated. But even though each part of a level is not meticulously designed by hand, everything just always comes together in the end, making this experience not specifically about how a level itself is designed, but rather about how the gameplay elements interact with each other, making each level like a clockwork machine of absolute chaos. For example, a horned lizard on its own can't really do much, you just jump over it and get it during its recoil animation. But as you start adding more layers, it starts becoming a real challenge. Say, a horned lizard in a corridor room with a tiki trap in the middle, a mole digging about, and just to add to the chaos, an angered shopkeeper. Yeah, now it's actually complicated and you have to strategize on how to go past that corridor. Maybe you could just throw a bomb on the ground and skip it entirely. Or you could go through it while dodging everything like some sort of raging maniac. But there's also the more obvious solution of just killing the shopkeeper first and using his shotgun to solve the rest of the problems. The point is, this game has mastered the art of making small obstacles and combining them together to make a full wipeout course. And it's not just one of those regular wipeout courses. Think about a stage where you can use elements in it to deal with other parts of it. Now that's Spelunky. Levels in between worlds. At the end of every world, there's a small interworld separation. The Quillback boss at the end of the dwelling, Olmec's lair after the jungle and Volcana, and the ice caves after the tide pool and Anubis' temple. I think these additions were great ideas. Having these small semi-worlds shakes the game up just a bit to keep it interesting and make it a not so homogeneous adventure. I have mixed feelings about these though, as they do get kind of repetitive after going through them a bunch of times. Maybe having many different options or versions of Interworlds would alleviate it a bit. Imagine, rather than having to kill Quillback every time, instead you have to solve some sort of puzzle. Or instead of going through the ice caves every time, you go through Dracula's castle from the original. I don't know, I just don't really like having to do stuff that's always the exact same every run. The level feelings. Another mechanic created to shake things up is level feelings, and let me say right now, they are kind of a wasted potential. Most of them don't really change a lot in the game, and they usually just add some extra random elements that aren't really interesting, and the ones that I do like just don't show up enough. Take the Dead Are Restless, for example. In the original game, this feeling could only show up in the jungle, whereas here it can now show up in a few different levels. I think this is one of the more interesting level feelings, but it only happens around every 200 runs. I could probably count on my fingers how many times I've seen a Restless Dead level in my almost 200 hours of gameplay. Seems like the dead really do just want to rest. Another one is the jail cell feeling. It makes all these locked rooms show up in the tide pool. The problem is, there are never any keys in the level, and the stuff inside them isn't really worth it, so I never pay much attention to them. It would have been cool if they added some sort of puzzle or scavenge hunt to get the keys, and would add a whole extra risk-reward element to these levels, as this is definitely the least fleshed out one. And before moving on, I just have to mention, the most annoying feeling, dark levels, is the one that shows up the most. It's completely worthless and just forces you to either carry an extra item with you through the level or run the risk of dying to some unseen trap or enemy. Like seriously, why does it show up so much? Okay, this was my little footnote on the part I didn't like about the levels in the game. Moving on. Extra content and post-game. Man, let me tell ya, not only does this game offer you 6 whole main worlds to explore, it has a shit ton of secrets hidden all over it. It truly makes you feel like an explorer. Like, what does this drill do? Why are there so many locked doors? Who the hell are you? What happens if I try to murder this guy? After you finish the game, there's still like 50% of it left to discover, and I just love that. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Except, the gift is death, and it keeps on killing you. As I mentioned before, I also like how the more trivial secret worlds from the original were just turned into sub-areas this time around. It really makes them feel more like part of the world, and less like levels that are just there for the sake of being there. Spelunky 2 offers you a gigantic and well-developed world as it is deadly, and I just love it for that. There are 2 things I do not like about the secrets though. The first thing is that, spoilers, the path to get to the sunken city has 2 pairs of choices that it lets you make. And while the first one is pretty balanced, with no clear better pick of which path to go through, the other choice is just completely one-sided. There's absolutely no advantage to going through the City of Gold and Duet over going to the Abzu. It's just much harder and doesn't have a lot of benefits worth talking about. The other gripe I have is with the fact that for almost any secret in the game, you need to use up your only inventory slot to carry an item through somewhere. Be it the scepter to get to the Sea of Gold, keys to get to any locked door unless you have the skeleton key, Howie's bow to get to you-know-who. The list goes on, and not only is carrying important items through the game such a tedious task, it almost negates your ability to carry anything else. The only way to carry more than one item through levels is to have a hired hand with you, and, well, let's just say they are not very trustworthy. And if you're asking yourself, No, I definitely did not read the wiki to find out most of the game's secrets. What kind of dumbass would do that? But seriously, am I glad that I bought this game months after release, because I wouldn't have found out any of the secrets on my own. They're just really well hidden and so clever at the same time. It must have been a blast to play this from day one, without anyone knowing about anything in the game and just figuring it all out as a community. This is an experience that is actually pretty unique and extremely hard for a game to deliver well. So, props to that. The soundtrack. Okay, now let's talk about the part I feel the most mixed about. Yeah, the soundtrack is basically one of the only things that I actually have negative opinions about in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, most of the songs are pretty good, or average at the worst. I even found myself moving around to the rhythm sometimes. But, and that's a pretty big but, the levels have almost no variety in the music. Each level only has one song, with a few variations, that plays every single time. Look, the Dwelling's theme is good, but not after listening to it for the 100th time in a day. Spelunky HD had 3 whole songs per level, not including variations, and they never got stale because of that, even the Mines tracks. On Spelunky 2's case though, I don't really want to listen to most of the game's music more than I already did, and that's just a shame. That all being said, the credit song is a fucking banger. Seriously, this game would really benefit from more jazz tracks. The graphics. I don't have a lot to say about the graphics. I think it looks nice, and the art style change is a good way to differ this game from the first one, and it's also a breath of fresh air. I think every level looks very unique. You can tell even from just the color schemes in a blurry picture which is which, and the elements contrast nicely with each other, making everything easy to spot in moments of complete chaos. I also have to appreciate it when I see an indie game that doesn't just use pixel graphics, because it's really oversaturated at this point. So yeah, round of applause to Spelunky 2. It gets the prize of best art style that isn't pixel art. I just invented this event and this is the only category. Okay, this last part of the video is gonna be more like an appreciation and less like a review. Though I don't even know if you could consider this video a review, but anyway. If you only wanted to know the quality of the game, you can leave now, but I recommend you stay anyway. Also, I'm gonna be spoiling basically the biggest thing I can spoil right now, so you can also leave if you don't want none of that shit. The Cosmic Ocean, the last area of the game and home to the true ending. Man, I can't even begin to think of how I can describe this, but this whole last challenge is very different from anything I've seen in a video game before. It's so unique in so many ways, and I'm gonna break my love for it down into a few main reasons. Let me start this with the motivational statement. You're not gonna beat it. And I mean it. Even if you're some sort of hardcore 100%er, you're probably gonna give up at some point. You have to spend probably a minimum of 200 hours of attempts to beat it. I say without hesitation that this is amongst one of the hardest challenges in gaming ever. If you still haven't understood just how tough this is, let me try to make a more concrete explanation. In the main path, you go through 6 worlds, leading to a total sum of 18 levels. 18 painful levels, in which you can die at any moment. If you add the Sunken City into the sum, it's 22 levels, which all things considered will probably take you around 30 minutes to beat on average. Now think about that for a moment. Done? Yeah, the Cosmic Ocean is 99 levels long. 99! 99 levels in which you have no pets or altars, so basically the only way of healing is if you got a specific item earlier in the run that lets you do so. Now think about the fact that if you get one of the game's negative status effects in there, you're basically as good as dead. Curse makes it so that you stay at 1 health with no way of healing, and Poison hits you for 1 damage every minute or so. Also, every level in TO loops around itself from every direction, so if you fall in the wrong place, you can accumulate so much fall damage that if simulated IRL would probably just look like gelatin falling in hot concrete. And did I mention that to leave every level you have to get past this weird ass jellyfish that insta-kills you on contact? I think I can mention a million other reasons as to why CO is the deadliest area in the game, but let's just get on to the next part already. Cosmic Ocean, apart from being a great challenge, is also a beautiful one. With broken up level backgrounds and the endless cosmos you can see, it's just really pleasing to look at. And I just love games that use the space aesthetics for a level. It's kind of a brainless thing. I just see stars and it's like neuron activation. And the music. The track for this level is so nice. Just a calm piece that really makes you feel like you're walking among the stardust. Just give it a listen. These two aspects combined together make this whole world a very solemn experience, despite the fact that you could die at any moment for some stupid reason. The Cosmic Ocean is just the ultimate combination of calmness and panic. It takes both of those feelings and smashes them together in a beautiful way, giving your brain the best kind of whiplash. This whole area that you visit is just a love letter to the game itself. It really feels like one last challenge. I hope that someday I can have the patience to actually beat this whole thing, and I recommend that anyone who plays or will play Spelunky 2 at least tries to do this as well, because just getting there already feels really rewarding. I hope that more developers can take this and make their own thing with it, because if every game had an ending challenge as good and creative as this, it would feel so much more satisfying to actually get to the end. Okay. Thank you for patiently listening to me ramble on about the specific part of the game. I just really wanted to talk about it. Well, would I recommend this game? I think the answer is pretty obvious by now, but yes, I think if you like platformers or roguelikes, or both, you should totally buy it. Though make sure you will actually enjoy it, as it's definitely not for everyone. All in all, Spelunky 2 is just great, and a love letter to game design. It encompasses everything that a game needs to be fun, and remixes that by randomizing every level. Seriously, this has become one of my favorite games ever, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of it in the future. Now, to finish off this video, I'm gonna recite a little poem about everything that can kill you in this game, from A to Z. A is for aliens who float in the air, and B is for big ass square that can crush you and comes from anywhere. C is for curse, which makes you kind of nervous, and D is for death. This one's pretty obvious. E is for elevators that can also crush you and also come from anywhere, and F is for fire frogs. They can give you quite a scare. G is for giant spiders who creep on the ceilings, and H is for hired hands who still give me mixed feelings. I is for ice, be careful not to fall, and J is for jetpack, why did they nerf it at all? K is for killer bees, whose movement is quite erratic, and L is for lava, which can be very problematic. M is for mummies, who are actually kind of helpful, and N is for Neo-Babylon, which just makes me feel dreadful. O is for octopi, who only know to run and jump. And P is for powder boxes, which explode from the smallest bumps. Q is for Quillback, who came straight from the Emerald Zone. And R is for rock dogs. They're made of stone, I don't know. S is for shopkeepers, who just won't stand still. And T is for Tiamat, who's actually easier to kill. U is for you, because you are your worst enemy. And V is for Volcana. Lava is its specialty. W is for witch doctors. For your heart they will aim. And X is for nothing, because there's nothing that starts with an X in the game. Y is for Yetis, who will try to toss you at the goddamn sun. And Z is for 0, because that's the amount of health you'll have at the end of every run. You think you have a chance, and the end might be nigh, but one thing is certain, you will die.